Okay, so we're here to talk about leave no trace and outdoor ethics. You might have heard both of those terms. Leave no trace is actually a registered trademark of the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, which is a privately funded nonprofit and closely associated with Scouts. Scouting uses the term outdoor ethics, but I think Leave No Trace is so ingrained in everybody's mind at this point that we tend to think of it as Leave No Trace or LNT. So the mission of the LeaveNoTrace.org is basically to protect the outdoors and to basically teach people. They also do a lot of research into people's behavior in the outdoors and how we can affect that. Why do we care? Well, you know, you guys have all seen examples in the backcountry of, you know, the trash and things being messed up, destroyed. People tend not to think about what they're doing in the backcountry, and we like to keep it pristine for everybody who comes after us so they can enjoy it just like we did. A little bit on the history of how we got where we are. We always like to start with the Wilderness Act of 1964, which was started with the National Park Service. And then in the 70s, they started a no trace program as more and more people started going into the backcountry, and rangers were finding that things were getting messed up and trash was left and trees were being chopped down, et cetera, et cetera. In the early 90s, the LeaveNoTrace.org was started and came up with the principles that we'll cover tonight. And this slide is actually a little out of date. There are not 35,000 people trained. There's more like 60 or 70,000 people trained at this point. So a little bit about what is happening today. The fact is just millions and millions of people are visiting the backcountry. So this is for the entire U.S. How many millions of people each year visit these various systems? And you might think, well, I've been to a state park. Has anybody been to a state park? Does anybody know what state parks are in our council? This is where you can unmute and actually talk.
Henry Coe is a good one.
Henry Coe is an excellent one, yes.
We have Harriman.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
New York, we have Harriman State Park.
Ah, in New York, yeah. Unfortunately, we have Big Basin, which burned down. But I was explaining to my troop just this past weekend that the redwoods are still there. It'll come back, but all the park buildings, I believe, are gone in Big Basin. Big Basin was actually started to preserve the redwoods on the California coast. Other places in our council, in Silicon Valley, Monterey Bay Council, we have a national park. Does anybody know what national park is inside of our council?
Pinnacles.
Pinnacles, yes. Pinnacles used to be a national monument, and a few years ago it was changed to a national park. You've probably all gone to some of the other ones. There's a national forest in our council, the Ventana Wilderness, which is south of Monterey. Those of you who've gone hiking on the Lost Coast, that's Bureau of Land Management property, and I was there with my venture crew a couple of years ago, and we actually had to sign. Everybody who went on that trip had to sign a form at the entrance saying that they would follow the principles of Leave No Trace while they were on Bureau of Land Management property. You can't follow the principles if you don't know what they are, so it's important for everybody to get trained. Okay. So the interesting thing here is that there are 44,219 miles of trails in state parks across the country, and my goal, my bucket list item, is to hike them all. I still got a ways to go. I want to share a couple pictures with you. Explain, some kind of give you an awareness of where we are. So here's a pristine area in a park, could be anywhere, USA, and it's kind of empty. And then people start showing up, and we start to see some changes, at least with the number of people there. But then as more and more people show up, then we start to actually really affect what's going on. Can anybody see some of the changes that have occurred, over these 3 slides to the park?
There's
I'm
trash
sorry?
on the ground.
Yeah, it's trash all over the place. I don't know if can you guys see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's trash here and here and here and here. All right. Anybody else see anything else that has changed?
The grass is damaged.
Yes. Right. So there's no grass here, right? And a couple other places, it's kind of one thing we can't see, but you can kind of imagine if you think about all these people here, is that in the first slide, it was probably pretty quiet. And in this slide, it's probably pretty noisy, right? So think about how that affects, the wildlife and the atmosphere and people's perception of how nice it is. A lot of times people don't think about those kinds of things. So there's, a full spectrum of things that can happen in the outdoors, from, a total leave no trace experience where everything stays pristine to, where the backcountry becomes a garbage dump. But it's more than just garbage, right? It's a lot more than just garbage. So a couple things that happen are soil impacts, right? What happens to the ground when a lot of people are using the backcountry. California has a very, how do I want to say, has a very fragile ecosystem, and we struggle with invasive species, right? And whether it be plants and or insects or whatever that affect the environment. So we got to be careful with that. Wildlife impacts, we all know about don't feed the animals. Water impacts, stuff we use that gets in the water messes up the water. Social impacts, crowding and conflicts. I'm sure you guys have all run into something somewhere along the way where something like that happened. Cultural impacts. A lot of people don't realize it is illegal to take anything that could be considered historical if you find it out in the woods. Whether, it be something that somebody left, 100 years ago, or an arrowhead, or other things that you might think would make a great souvenir. It's actually illegal to take them. And in fact, if you find stuff like that, you should tell the ranger where you found it so that they can go and take a look and see if it needs to be protected. There is actually a theory that people have put out there that they should be able to spray paint the rocks and whatnot, because these petroglyphs were basically graffiti that humans put on that rock, 1,000 years ago. So our graffiti today will become a historical artifact in a few hundred years. I think most people disagree with that argument. So another question is this large picture on the left, is that artwork or is that a distraction? But anybody want to take a guess?
Distraction.
Anybody go for artwork?
Sometimes it uses an artwork.
It could be conceived as artwork.
Somebody thought it was. So here's my take on it. If this is in your back room, or your backyard, it is artwork. If it's in the back country, it is a distraction. So, you know, and the park rangers at this particular park felt the same way. I believe this is a park in Colorado. They would find these rocks all piled up, and it's hard to see in this picture up here in the upper right. But they would knock them all down. They would knock all the rocks down, and then they'd come back a week or two later, and they'd be all piled up again. And they finally got tired of knocking them down, and so they put up a fence, they put up a sign, and said nobody goes in this area anymore. And so a few people who thought it was funny to stack all these rocks up actually ended up getting that area put off limits for everybody. Anybody ever seen this before? So I want to say about 5-6 years ago, I was hiking or about to hike Mount Whitney. And for those of you who hike Mount Whitney, you start in the middle of the night. You have to be to the top before lunchtime. And we were in the parking lot at 2:30 in the morning. And it was amazing how many people were in the parking lot at that time. And all of a sudden, this one woman starts shouting, "Who stole my backpack? Who stole my backpack?" And apparently she had leaned her backpack up against the back of her car and went to the bathroom. And when she came back, it was gone. And about 20 minutes later, we found the backpack. It had been dragged off into the woods by a bear. It had been completely torn apart. The bear had eaten all the food that was in it. And that woman's Mount Whitney trip was over before she stepped out onto the trail. Because there's no way you can hike to the top and back without, your food, your water bottle, and everything else. So you just got to be aware of the wildlife in your area and the risks, and you can't leave things out where animals, and it's not just bears. There's a lot of other animals that will get into your food and destroy your food and make a mess. I'm not 100% sure where this is, but I think it's Tuolumne Meadows in Yosemite. The person who taught me Leave No Trace originally, a guy named Jim Luisi, told me that when he first hiked down this trail, it looked like the trail on the left here, this one little path. Now it looks like a road for a truck or a Jeep or something. There are no vehicles that have ever driven down here. This is all done by people. Does anybody want to, obviously the first path, this one here is the first path. Does anybody want to guess how it ended up being 5 or 6 paths?
It was muddy.
It was muddy. Exactly. Right. So what happens? You have this little path here, right? And then people start hiking down and they want to hike next to their buddy instead of in front or behind. And so the path gets wider. And then as the path gets wider, eventually it rains. And when it rains, because the earth has been compacted here, the water seeps down there and it makes it muddy. And so people don't want to walk through the mud. So they start walking beside it and they create a second path just as big as the first. And then that gets muddy. So they start moving over here and over here. And the next thing you know, you have a 6-lane highway down through this pristine meadow. In Leave No Trace, we learned to waterproof our hiking boots and walk through the mud. And then when we get to the end of the trail, we clean the mud off the bottom of our shoes so we don't track seeds and insects and things to other areas. Probably don't need to talk too much about this. I seriously doubt that DH still loves AR. The only thing we know about Mike Brown from 1985 is that we really didn't want to see the fact that he was an idiot enough to scratch his name into a tree or a stone or whatever that is. But I will tell you this, Scouts get their first pocket knife and they cannot wait to carve their initials into something. So as adult leaders, we need to we need to try and keep that from happening wherever possible. A lot of people who go in the backcountry don't really think about what they're doing or don't know any better. And they think, well, we'll just burn all our trash. The downside with that is that aluminum beer cans don't burn, nor do tuna fish cans and cans of beans. You can see the tab here from a can. You can see what appears to be a plastic or a leather piece of something. Here's a smashed steel can. There's some pieces of plastic. You never want to put plastic into a fire because the fumes aren't something you necessarily want to breathe. And even if all that had been packed out like it should be, they still left these half-burned pieces of wood. And when you're out, you want to burn everything down to ash and then scatter the ashes. You really want to leave as little trace as possible. I love this next one. What do you think your mother would say if you did that to a plant in her front yard? Right. I got to admit, it is pretty impressive. But on the other hand, I don't go in the backcountry to see everybody's name scribbled in a plant. I know the guy that took this picture. He said that this campsite was used for one night, that nobody had ever camped here before the previous night. And in one night, these people completely trashed this area. They started a fire which burned away into the hill and almost collapsed it. There's garbage everywhere. There's trash everywhere. There's something that really, really annoys me. And I see a lot of single-use plastic, right? I see plastic bottles, plastic bags, more bottles and more bottles and more bottles. We want to try and reuse as much as possible. There's a strong link between leave no trace and sustainability. Anybody want to take a guess at what's wrong with this picture?
They're too close.
What? They are too close. Yes, they are too close.
They're victims.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah. So those elk are just too close to those people. They're not scared of the people. And when animals lose their fear of people, that's one step closer to a premature death. It's just not good for animals who should be afraid of people to not be afraid of people. One little trick that we teach people to how close they should be to animals, wild animals, is what we call the rule of thumb. So I don't know if you guys can see me, but if you stick your arm out as far as you can and then stick your thumb up, your thumb should be able to cover the animal completely. And if you can see the animal on either side of your thumb, then you need to move further away. It's just a simple trick to tell you how close you can be. Obviously, you can be closer to smaller animals. Now, we saw this picture before. We all know not to feed the animals. Has anybody here ever been to the top of Half Dome? Anybody ever climb Half Dome?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Can you describe what's on top of Half Dome?
A big flat rock.
It is a big flat rock. It is a huge, big piece of granite rock. Nothing grows on top of Half Dome, except maybe a little lichen. And yet, if you get to the top, you will find the cousins of these little chipmunks. They're an animal called I just lost it. It's a small rodent. It'll come to me in a minute. But they live up there, and the only food they get is from the people that bring their lunch up there. Well, what happens in October? The rangers take the cables down, and so people can't get to the top, and so people don't take any food up. Marmots, that's what they are, marmots. And the marmots don't have any food, and now they've spent all summer mooching off of people. They're actually kind of a pest. and now they haven't saved up any food for the winter. And how are they going to survive the winter? So, you know, it's just not good to feed the animals. When a friend of mine told me a story, I don't know if it's true or not, I've never been able to confirm it, but they talk about a deer that rangers found who had starved to death. And they couldn't understand because it was a good summer, there was plenty of food. So they cut open the deer's stomach to find out if they could get a clue as to why it had died from starvation. And its stomach was filled with chip bags, Nature Valley bags, and stuff like that. They lick the salt that are off of the bags that we use and drop on the ground. And then, you know, they lick the salt off, and eventually they accidentally, ingest the bag, and it gets stuck in their stomach, and then their stomach can't function properly. Again, I don't know if that's a true story, but it's pretty graphic to think about it. Another question. What do you think happened to these trees? I'll give you a hint. Humans did something to them.
Well, I assume the roots got killed somehow and they've all died. Is that right?
Well, they have all died, that's for sure. I'm sorry?
Is there a pest
Hammock?
that was brought in?
They
Nope.
nails in there? Hammer things into there?
Close. You're getting close.
Ropes from the hammocks.
Shooting target.
Shooting target. Who said that? That's the big winner. Nobody's ever been able to guess that before. The guy who took this picture said he walked up to those trees, and the ground around those trees were littered with bullets and shells. People had used those trees as target practice to the point where they actually knocked them down. That's why we have gun ranges. Go to the gun range if you want to shoot a gun. We do it all the time. My venture crew loves to go shooting, but there's ranges for that. So here's an interesting picture. My dog always has to be on a leash when we're at home. So when I go in the backcountry, I like to let my dog go and let my dog run because he never gets a chance to run as much as he wants. Problem is, dogs are natural predators, and this dog naturally went after a deer, right? Now that dog probably didn't kill the deer, but think about if that doe was pregnant, right? The stress could cause her to lose the baby. Not to mention the fact that, just the stress of being attacked by a dog anytime could be a problem. There is one animal that can die from stress. Does anybody know what that animal is? Going once, going twice. A rabbit. A rabbit can die from stress, from being chased, without actually being caught. Here's some people having fun in the stream. But if you're camping downstream from this group, would you want to get your cooking water out of the stream? Probably not. Probably not. I would assume that water.
No way.
Yeah. I would assume that water has sunscreen in it and bug spray and pieces of food and probably some garbage and other things that we won't mention.
Yeah.
And we don't want to drink that water, but the fish that live in that stream don't have a choice, right? So, got to think about that when you're enjoying the outdoors. I have a couple. This is a great place to camp, wouldn't you say? This is if you were out hiking. So there's one place in the Bay Area, and somebody mentioned earlier, it's Henry Cove. Once you get more than 2 miles from any of the entrances to Henry Cove, there are no longer any designated camping spots. You basically have to follow leave no trace principles and find a camping spot. And yet, I can't tell you how many square miles there are of space in Henry Cove. I've spent a week hiking around the perimeter in the backcountry there. And it's gorgeous. And you find spots like this. The problem is once somebody finds a spot, more people find the spot, and as more people use it, you can start to see that they've piled up some rocks to make a campfire, and they're starting to wear away the grass. And then more people find this spot and think it's a great place to camp, and more of the vegetation disappears, and now we've got another log to sit on. And eventually, all of the vegetation disappears, and before you know it, there's an outdoor barbecue at this spot. Now, the interesting thing about this, it's not as pristine as it was in the first picture. But the fact is, if you found this space when you're in the backcountry, this is where you want to camp. Because why would you camp in a pristine area and start trampling that down when we've already got an area that's trampled down? So we encourage people to find campsites rather than make campsites. So that's all my pictures. There are 7 principles of leave no trace. Plan ahead and prepare, camp and travel on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfires, respect wildlife, and be considerate of others. You guys can all read, but I love to say them. Now, these are great for adults. We understand how this all works, but some of you may work with Cub Scouts. And Cub Scouts, you know, think that dispose of waste properly is just a foreign concept. So we have the 7 principles for kids. And we use Bigfoot as our mascot because, well, Bigfoot's been leaving no trace for a long time. And those 7 principles, they're the same exact principles. Know before you go, choose the right path, trash your trash, et cetera, et cetera. So you may hear 2 different sets of principles, but they are the same. One is for kids and one is for adults. Anybody have any questions about the principles? Hearing none, we'll move on. Remember I said leave no trace about education. Why should you get trained? All right. So this is an awareness workshop, right? We're kind of talking about why we should follow leave no trace and kind of the basic principles, but training, and I'll get into it in a couple more slides, is a little more, we dig into all these principles in a little more detail. And the reason why we should invest the time to get trained in a little more detail, there's a number of reasons. One thing is outdoor ethics is incorporated into every single rank in Cub Scouts, every rank in Scouts BSA, and even the Ranger Warden Venturing. So it is a vital part of the scouting program. One of the leadership positions that every troop should have, and my personal goal, is that every troop have an outdoor ethics guide as one of their scout leaders. I also think that adults who are teaching the principles and signing off on the principles need to be trained and know what it's all about in order to effectively sign off. And I want to have an adult mentor in every unit in the council to be a mentor to that outdoor ethics guide. And I got to tell you, it actually is a lot of fun to go through the training and kind of learn all this cool stuff. So just to back it up, I'm not going to read all this stuff, but you can see that every rank has requirements that are tied into outdoor ethics. And in Scouts BSA, the second class, explain leave no trace and how do you practice it, right? First class, you have to discuss tread lightly. Now, I haven't talked about that previously. Tread lightly is a different organization, similar to leave no trace, but they tend to focus on leaving no trace in the outdoors with motorized vehicles. And what do I mean by that? Right? Well, ATVs, snowmobiles, boats on the water. those kinds of things. They also touch on hiking and camping and everything else, but they have a focus on motor vehicles that LeaveNoTrace.org does not. Now, you might say, well, why is that important? Scouts aren't allowed to drive ATVs. Is that true? Does anybody know if that's true?
I think at a certain age they're allowed to. Under
You are correct.
At least if they're at a BSA base.
Yeah, venturers are allowed to drive snowmobiles. They can go snowmobiling and certain other things. There are 4 summer camps in the United States that have ATVs as part of the summer program. So Scouts are allowed to under certain circumstances. So here's kind of the structure on the Master Educator course. You all are just about finished in your awareness workshop. We have a 4-hour course called L&T 101 that it's kind of geared towards Cub leaders. It gives a big overview. Anybody can take it, including youth. All of these, by the way, are any youth 14 and older or adult can take any of these courses. Our council offers the LeaveNoTrace trainer course twice a year under normal circumstances. We only had one this year. Our course actually finished 2 days before shelter in place. So we got one in this year. Probably get one in next year. It has to be taught outdoors. It's an experiential type training. I say 2 days, but it's a day and a half. We start Saturday morning and go till lunchtime on Sunday. And we probably have about 30 leave-no-trace trainers in the council. And again, about a third of those are youth in the program, and 2/3 are adults. And then the Master Educator course is a 5-day course. And you might say, how can you spend 2 days talking about this? There's only 7 principles. Well, what we do is we break those 7 principles down and kind of dig into each one of them and talk about what it means, why we do what we do, and how we do things, and talk about ideas and ways we can, accomplish all of those principles. And when we get, 15, 20 people together, we can share a lot of ideas, and it actually is a lot of fun and very educational. There are 3 master educators in our council. I'd love to have more for people who are really into it. It basically takes the 2-day course and just kind of expands it even further. The course I took, it says 5 days, but it was actually 6. It was actually 6. And when we did half of that, we spent backpacking in the backcountry. So it was a lot of fun. There are 2 awards that you can get related to outdoor ethics. The Awareness Award is actually pretty simple, and most scouts should be able to get this. I mean, they have to recite the outdoor code. Well, that's a requirement for the scout rank, right? So everybody should be able to do that. The National Park video. A lot of times when I do these seminars in person, I'll play the video. It's 9 minutes, and it's really, really well done, and it's definitely worth taking a look at. The Leave No Trace online course takes a half an hour. The Tread Lightly online course takes about a half an hour. So those are pretty simple. And then participate in a workshop like this one, and then you get the award. So it's pretty simple to get that. The Action Award follows on the Awareness Award. You have to actually get the Awareness Award first. Go through the Leave No Trace section of the handbook, teach one of the 7 principles to other scouts in the troop. And then, these other things tend to be practicing or having a outdoor event focused around Leave No Trace, one or several of the principles. usually our outings have some sort of focus, and that can be one of the focuses. My younger son became a Leave No Trace trainer when he was a junior in high school, and he spent the next year while he was a senior teaching one of the 7 principles at a scout meeting once every other month. So for a year, every other month, he was in charge of the program for the troop. So that's that. I'll leave you with a saying from my favorite Leave No Trace character, the Lorax. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. I know I talked a lot, and I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions about all this stuff.
I just want to ask about online links. What would you recommend? What's the best resources for a little more information?
There are plenty of online resources. Certainly the leavenotrace.org, www.lnt.org, has a lot of information. You go to the education section. But my favorite, and it's easy to remember, Leave No Trace Dude. The LNT, I think it's LNT Dude, has a very simple website that goes through the 7 principles and gives you things to talk about, think about. He gives, for every example of what you should do, he gives arguments for why not to do that. It's very thought-provoking. There's also, we like to teach the principles through playing games. There's a lot of games online. I find there's a book that the leavenotrace.org sells that there's actually 2 books. One's kind of for adults and one's for kids that both have a lot of games. They're like games with a purpose, and they're really, really good games that you can play. There is there's actually a Leave No Trace for Cub Scouts tomorrow night, if you have time to take it, that kind of digs into some of those games you can play. Right. Any other questions? Did I answer the question, first of all?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Are
Other
there-
questions?
Are there games that you can play at a virtual meeting with Cub Scouts?
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. And Carol Walters, who's a Leave No Trace trainer, who took the course a couple of years ago, teaches that course tomorrow night, and she has a lot of links to games. And the leavenotrace.org website has a lot of videos, and they're like 2-minute videos. So you play the video for 2 minutes, and they talk about, a sample campsite, and they show you a sample campsite, and then you have a discussion about what was good about that campsite, what was bad about that campsite, what followed the principles, what didn't follow the principles. There's a lot of games. There's the trash timeline game that everybody likes to play. And basically, you basically hold up something, and you say, how long does it take for this to decompose, right? And you start with things that decompose quickly, and you move into things that decompose that take a long, long time. And it gives you a sense of when you throw something away in the backcountry, how long it's going to be there till it's gone. But there's, like I said, there's 7 principles. There's probably 10 or 15 games that relate to each principle that you could play. Other questions, any?
For the course that you offer 2 times a year, is it limited of age?
Hmm? I'm sorry? The course twice a year, what's the question?
Limited of age.
Yes, you have to be 14 and above. And that's not my rule. That's just a legal issue. So you have to be 14, but anybody 14 and above can take it. And like I said, we generally have about a third of our participants are youth and 2/3 are adults. Yeah. Is Jeff Ron still on? His son took the course a couple
I am
years
still
ago.
here, yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us what your son thought of the course?
He yeah, he loved it. I mean, I think that year he was at Cheeseboro pretty much every weekend for like the entire year. It was there. It must have been at least every other weekend. So between NYLT, so I'm sure for him it kind of blended in, but yeah, he definitely liked it. Definitely liked it. Actually, I was gonna say, Mark, you didn't teach the. I should go back on video. You didn't teach the hand signals that allow you to remember the 7 in order.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't want to give away all my secrets.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're holding that one back.
So yeah, okay. So I don't know how well you can see me. My camera's kind of high. So there's hand signals that go with the seven principles. See if I can remember them all. Okay, so it's plan ahead and prepare. Make a list, right? Camp and hike on durable surface. All right, walking the lawn. I got to think come through. Oh yes, dispose of waste properly. Okay, so this is a shovel digging a cat hole to dispose of your human waste properly. All right. And number 4 is leave what you find, take only pictures. Right. Number 5 is be careful with fire. Right. There's your fire. Number 6 is be considerate of wildlife. Respect wildlife. And number 7 is be considerate of others. Peace sign, waving, and be considerate of other visitors. So those are the 7 hand signals that go with the 7 principles.
Are those signs available for everyone to look up, or you just have
just go to YouTube. There's hundreds of videos on YouTube. and the funny thing is they're all slightly different, but that's okay, right? The point is to help you remember the principles, right? With the symbols. Yeah. But just go to YouTube and type in 7 principles hand signals and you'll get, 50 different links.
I thought it was just 7. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mark, this is Brian. When you mentioned the course from Carol Walters tomorrow, you're referring to the University of Scouting one? Yes,
the University of Scouting. I think it's teaching leave no trace principles to Cub Scouts.
Right. So just for
I want to say it's at 6 tomorrow.
If you're interested in that course, you can still sign up for that if you're a Cub Scout leader. The course number is C120, so C120, and it's called Introduction to Leave No Trace for Cubs, and it's going to be offered tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. So if you do have an interest in that, and I actually sat in on her earlier version of that class earlier this week, and like Mark said, she did have slides on how long does it take an apple core to deteriorate in the wildlife, how long does it take an orange peel, how long does it take a soda can, and so on and so forth. So if you are interested in that, you can still sign up for that class for tomorrow night, 6 p.m.
Definitely worthwhile. Other questions? What do you guys want to talk about? We still got 5 or 6 minutes.
I have a quick question. Are you willing to share those slides? Just because I was trying to take a few notes, but I didn't do a great job.
Sure. Not sure how we do that. I think they're trying to work out a thing because it's a huge file, right? I mean, it's like 50 megabytes. But I'm absolutely willing to share the slides. Mm-hmm.
I know a few other classes just had us shoot an email to you, and they just emailed them to us. But It was helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have a University of Scouting format set up for sharing our presentations?
Dave Holt had a G drive. I don't know if that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we have that. We do have this one thing I will mention is this course is being recorded, so there will be a link so that if somebody wants to go back and watch it again, there will be a YouTube link for it.
Awesome.
Or if you have somebody else that you realize, oh, that person really should have been in on this course, he can come back and watch it. Can watch it later. I don't know of a specific repository for the presentations, though, so I think that's been kind of instructors.
In which case, feel free to email me, and I can set up a Dropbox and get it to you.
Yes, I will.
Do you have an email?
Have a copy of the slide too.
Do you have an email address, Mark, or did you give that to us?
It's S as in Stephen, M as in Mark, Fisher, Fisher, all one word, 129 @gmail.com.
Thanks.
Now, I'm just curious, how many of the 41,000 miles of trails did you actually hike? Have you?
I've gone through 2 pair of hiking boots. I would say I have, just in terms of scouting, through scouting, I've hiked about over 2,000 miles.
That's great.
And yes, I follow leave no trace principles when I'm in the backcountry.
From all of the areas that you have been hiking, which one is the best one?
Yeah, it depends what you're looking for, right? There's a great book called Hiking in California, and they just redid it a couple years ago, and it's got hundreds, probably thousands of hikes listed. And in the front of the book, it actually says the 10 best hikes in California for seeing wildflowers, the 10 best hikes in California to see waterfalls, the 10 best hikes in California along the beach. And so it all depends on what you're looking for. And it's got, like I say, about 1,000 hikes in it, and it tells you how to get there, tells you a little bit about each hike. Frankly, I really enjoy hiking in the Mid-Peninsula Open Space Preserve in the Santa Cruz Mountains, to the point where my son actually did his Eagle Scout project, was a trail restoration on what they call the Ridge Trail. There's a trail that follows the top of the ridge. There's hikes along the bay. Everything's a little different. There's urban hikes. We take our youth on urban hikes sometimes, as well as, being out in the woods. If you want to do a week-long backpack trip and not have to drive too far, Henry Coe. Although I don't know what the wildfire did to Henry Coe. I don't know how much damage it sustained.
I think they're closed through the end of the year.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt. Yeah, I think at least part of Henry Coe, got caught in the wildfires, which is a real shame. A lot of people ask where to go camping in the Bay Area. There's hundreds of places to go camping in the Bay Area. Every county has county parks. East Bay has the East Bay Regional Parks with, I think, 51 parks, of which like 36 of them have campsites. There's state parks, national parks. There's just plenty of places to go. There's never never an end of places to go. So I will never hike all those trails.
Thank you.
A lot of the county parks and the open space districts have really nice trails in the South Bay as well. So a lot of places you can hike with, you know, within 10 miles of home.
Yeah. Yep. When I want to hike close to home, I live in Santa Clara, and I drive out to Cupertino and hike at Fremont Older or Stevens Creek County Park. If you want something close, if you're kind of South San Jose, Almond and Quicksilver's great. I hiked there about a month ago. I encourage everybody to wear a mask when you hike. County regulations are still to wear a mask whenever you are going to be within 6 feet of other people, and you can't hike in the woods and maintain 6 feet. So you should really wear a mask when you're hiking. Other questions? I think we're probably out of time, aren't we? It's I got 8:52, so I think we're good. I hope to see you at future training opportunities, and I hope to see your scouts there too. Like I said, my goal is to have every unit have an outdoor ethics guide and an adult mentor for that guide. So a lot of opportunities for people to get involved.
Thanks, Mark. This is a really interesting session. Really enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad you got something out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
All right, Mark, so as people drop off, you can go ahead and when you're ready, you can hit that end button down there.
Okay. We'll see you. Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Okay, all right, thanks, good job.
Okay, bye-bye.